Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 9 of the Decred Assembly. I'm your host, Tyler, and today we are joined by Austin Williams and Charlie Lee, the one and only Satoshi Nakomoto, maybe, who knows. So before we start the show, I just want to give everybody, let everybody know that we had a successful first hard fork of the Decred network, which happened yesterday. So it's really awesome that we get to have Charlie on the show the day after. We hard forked our staking difficulty algorithm and everything went smooth. Everything is going awesome right now on the Decred network, which is really great. And I want to thank everybody that participated in the survey that we did before the show started. Just, you know, all the questions. We got so many questions, and we tried to consolidate everything we could into a list of questions that would make sense and flow right for the conversation. So hopefully, if we don't get to everybody's questions, I apologize, but it just is what it is. So yeah, and one last thing. Yeah, I think that's it on my intro type stuff. So yeah, so welcome to the show, Charlie. It's awesome to have you on the show.
Hey.
How's it going?
Good.
And then we're joined by Austin Williams over here. He's my co-host today. So yeah, I guess let's get started, and maybe you can do a quick introduction of for all of those that don't know you, Charlie.
Yeah. So, name's Charlie Lee. I created Litecoin 6 years ago, and I love Decred also. And recently left Coinbase to work on Litecoin full time.
That's awesome. Yeah, and we'll probably dive into some of these topics a little deeper. So I have my list of questions here going based on what the community said and what I thought would be interesting to talk about. So, all right. So first question, are you Satoshi Nakamoto?
No, I'm not, unfortunately.
All right. Well, sorry guys, for anybody wondering out there. I guess Charlie is not Satoshi. We had a lot of people wanting to ask that question. So
yeah,
I guess, you know, to get started. So what's your origin story and your involvement behind Bitcoin and like in the beginnings? Like, so how did you first get into Bitcoin and cryptocurrency?
Yeah, so in 2011, I found out about Bitcoin through, I think, a Wired article on Silk Road, and kind of got hooked like everyone else. Was breathing, eating, and kind of sleeping, thinking about Bitcoin. Back then, the community was so small that you can practically read everything about Bitcoin. Like you can just track and follow the Bitcoin forum and read everything going on with Bitcoin. If you spend like the whole day on it. So I was doing that. I did everything. I mined some Bitcoins using GPUs. I built a couple of mining machines. I bought Bitcoin. I even got into the pirate Ponzi scheme. Basically everything, all the things that were going on, I kind of got involved in. And then people started creating altcoins, and I figured I could create an altcoin that was better than all the other ones out there. And so I did. And it was a good chance to kind of learn the source code too.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so what were you doing before I guess Bitcoin and Litecoin?
I was working at Google. I was working on YouTube Mobile and also Chrome OS, Chromebooks.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And so and you said you decided to create Litecoin because you wanted to create the best altcoin. So what was your motivation behind, I guess, the way you built Litecoin? Because from my understanding, Litecoin is a fork of Bitcoin. Essentially, its primary difference is its proof of work algorithm is significantly different.
Yeah. So well, a couple of things. One is most of the altcoins before Litecoin were all kind of very scammy, created by people who wanted to strike it rich. So they pre-mine a lot of coins and kind of try to pump it. And if it gets on the exchange, they could sell their stash. So I want to create something that's fair. And the second thing I want to do was create a coin that complements Bitcoin and be the silver to Bitcoin's gold. So I understood quite well like the relationship between gold and silver, the commodity and currency. I've done gold futures trading previously. So the idea was to create a coin that had a bit more quantity, faster, easier to use, kind of just like silver versus gold. And one thing I figured out is that I needed to change the proof of work. Otherwise, it would be competing with Bitcoin for miners, which is really hard for a new coin to kind of survive. So Script was actually already being used by another coin called Tainted, and it was at that time mined on a CPU on your computer. So it was a good choice. So I decided to do that, and I guess the rest is history.
Awesome. So you created Litecoin. Litecoin had a big uprising. I think it was 2013. 2013. I think it went to like $50, and it was like pennies earlier that year. And then I guess after that, price pulled back a lot. We went into crypto winter. And for a lot of coins, not just Litecoin, and then you went to go work for Coinbase. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about your experience at Coinbase and what drew you to go work for them.
Yeah, I joined Coinbase in June of 2013. The reason why I decided to join Coinbase as opposed to focus on Litecoin was that I realized I guess I'm a Bitcoiner before I created Litecoin, so I'm a huge fan of Bitcoin also. And I realized that for Bitcoin and Litecoin to succeed, it had to be easy to use. And Coinbase was one of the platforms that made Bitcoin easy to use. It was the best one out there. That made it possible for people like my mom or dad to actually buy some coins and not have to worry about how to secure them, because there's no way they're going to run a node or figure out how to secure their own coins. And back then, hardware wallets weren't really out. So it was just really hard, and Coinbase made things easy. So I figured I want to help Coinbase and help make Bitcoin and eventually Litecoin easy to use for the average folks. And that's why I joined Coinbase. Yeah.
Awesome. And I saw the tweet that you sent, I think 4 years ago, to Coinbase, I think probably before you started working there, essentially trying to see if they would add Litecoin. So did you joining Coinbase have anything to do with trying to get Litecoin listed on Coinbase?
I guess it was my ulterior motive for joining Coinbase. But I knew that at that time I knew Coinbase adding Litecoin is a far-fetched thing, because most companies were focused on Bitcoin, and Litecoin, it's definitely confusing if you go onto Coinbase and it was saying buy Bitcoin and or Litecoin and or these other coins. So I guess I worked in the background to try to get Coinbase to add Litecoin, and they eventually did this year. But the main reason why I joined Coinbase is to actually just help Coinbase succeed and make Bitcoin easy to use. And I know that once Bitcoin is easy to use, everything else will follow.
Definitely. And I think we're all lucky to have an awesome. Coinbase has been an awesome service for onboarding a lot of new users into Bitcoin. Most of the people that I know got in later to Bitcoin have bought their first coins definitely from Coinbase. So. So then, Coinbase recently added Litecoin to, and then you've also recently left Coinbase. So mission accomplished. and now you've moved on to supporting Litecoin full time. So, how, what drew you to this decision in your life to move on to supporting Litecoin full time, and maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah, actually, I started spending more time working on Litecoin mid last year. What kind of the reason why I decided to do that is I saw the scaling debate with Bitcoin kind of becoming a huge mess. And I figured I could do something to kind of help push things along. Since I created Litecoin and I have a lot of influence with it, I can try to help Litecoin activate SegWit to kind of prove to people that SegWit actually works, and there's no all this FUD around it is all lies. So that's what I did. So we worked hard on porting SegWit to Bitcoin. To Litecoin. Well, it's not actually that hard. The code wasn't that hard. What was hard is actually convincing all the miners and pools to activate SegWit on Litecoin, because the politics for Bitcoin kind of affected Litecoin also, because pools and miners were hesitant to support SegWit on Litecoin, because then they would have no reason to not support it for Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. But eventually, after a lot of talking, deals and stuff, and just convincing and trying to get miners and pools to start signaling and kind of break away from the pack, eventually they were finally all convinced that adding SegWit to Litecoin was the right thing to do.
So what was your primary argument to the miners to getting them on board? Hey, this could be the test bed for, is that?
Yeah, I mean, one thing is everyone on pretty much all the Litecoin supporters want SegWit, right? Litecoin for the past few years haven't really done anything different than the coin, so doing SegWit would kind of be something different and show that we can actually get some kind of be different, and to be a test bed for Bitcoin, to also potentially add Lightning networks and other things before Bitcoin does. The argument was that would help the price, right? Miners and pools care about the price of the coin that they're mining so that they can make more money. And once one of the pools, F2 pool, started signaling for SegWit, the price jumped. So it kind of proved that the market actually prefers SegWit on Litecoin. And that helped convince more and more pools and miners to support this. And kind of slowly but surely it got everyone convinced.
Awesome. Yeah. So, Austin, do you have any questions so far?
Just to follow up on that, you did it. First of all, congratulations. That's awesome. No small task. I'm curious what your assessment is. Do you feel like it has been impactful in the ongoing block size debate in Bitcoin, as the example that Litecoin has set? Is that been as influential as you had hoped?
It's hard to say what would happen if Litecoin didn't get SegWit, right? So I don't know how much it has influenced things. It's definitely done something. So a lot of people use the argument that SegWit was fine on Litecoin. There's even a $2 million bounty on a SegWit address, proving that it's safe. Miners aren't just stealing these anyone can spend coins because of the way SegWit is activated. Also, I think one of the big things is that with SegWit on Litecoin, a lot of the Bitcoin developers, Lightning Network developers, were really frustrated with Bitcoin, where SegWit is kind of in the technical communities, adding SegWit is kind of a no-brainer. It's multiple wins for with a soft fork with very little risk. So just the devs were getting kind of frustrated that SegWit is not getting active on Bitcoin, and work is getting stalled because of that. So with SegWit on Litecoin, a lot of developers, like Lightning developers, can actually start testing and work on stuff with Lightning on Litecoin. And the nice thing is that when Bitcoin eventually gets SegWit, all the work can easily be ported over to Bitcoin because Litecoin and Bitcoin are so similar. And one other thing is that some of the Bitcoin developers are started working on Litecoin. For example, Johnson Lau is working on adding mast and covenants and some of the new opcodes to Litecoin as a soft fork. The feature is called Smart Crypto Vault, and he's very excited that he can actually start working on that before Bitcoin gets SegWit.
Yeah, that's cool. That's good.
Yeah, so that's definitely like a plus where developers can get unblocked and just be excited about working on code as opposed to all this political BS.
Yeah, they can keep that forward momentum until the politics catches up.
Yeah.
That's cool. See, like a lot of Bitcoin maximalists will, they treat all other altcoins as sort of just like test beds for Bitcoin proper. And there's some truth to that in as much as if it's a close enough fork to Bitcoin like Litecoin is, like you're saying, they can put all that work back to Bitcoin. On the other hand, if the politics takes too long to catch up, then anyone who wants to take part in the new features, SegWit and Lightning and stuff like that. I mean, if Bitcoin takes too long to catch up, then it might be too late to port. You can lose network effect. I don't think we've lost it too badly yet in the Bitcoin space, but they could. It really could happen if they don't get.
Yeah, to a certain degree, but I think like Bitcoin is still going to be king of cryptocurrency. And I always envision Litecoin to complement Bitcoin. So it's not about like stealing features or users from Bitcoin, but more of like Litecoin is faster, more nimble, and can kind of upgrade more contentious, more risky features sooner to test it out because it has a smaller market cap.
Yeah, this has been a perfect example of that. The implementing SegWit. So, yeah, that's been a great example.
Yeah.
And then, this kind of segues into a good question. So in your opinion, what do you think the largest unsolved problem in cryptocurrencies right now is? I guess the major
largest
one.
unsolved problem. I think it's still ease of use in terms of kind of securing your coins. So now you have like hardware wallets, which makes things easier, right? So it's all about like convenience versus the trade-off between convenience and security, right? So using Coinbase is very convenient, but then you're relying on a third party for everything. Putting everything in your, like securing yourself via like running your own node works, but then if you get hacked, then you can lose all your coins. Or if you put all your savings into a paper wallet, it's very secure, but you can screw up and like have like lose access to your own coins, right? So that trade-off is hard for anyone to make, like whether how secure you want the coins to be, how convenient you want to access it. I think hardware wallets is close to an optimal solution for most people, but it's still not that easy to use. So I think we need to keep working on that until like everyone can be able to secure their coins with very low chance of losing them.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, and do you have any ideas on solutions to that problem? Because it seems like it's a really, tough problem. I feel like the 12-word or 33-word phrase or whatever is pretty easy, but it's still pretty hard for a lot of people. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on, after working on Coinbase, I feel like you guys probably bash your heads against the wall pretty regularly thinking about this. The 24 words is easy, but then like you have to write it down and you have to put it in a safe place, right? So you can put it in your bank vault or bank safe deposit box. But then
yeah, what happens if you lose access to that, or if there's a fire or something like that? Do you want to put it in multiple places? But if you put it in multiple places, there's risk of someone getting access to one of the places, right?
Yeah.
So then you can password protect it with a password. It's still pretty complicated. Yeah, there's no optimal solution yet, and I haven't. It's hard to come up with an optimal solution that is both safe and secure, and also you have very little to no chance of losing access to things yourself. Yeah, potentially like something like where you have using some sort of smart contracts, like check sequence verify, where the coins, if you lose access, then the coins will be sent sometime in the future, like 1 year later. So you can still get the coins, but you just have to wait for a timeout. Something like that. So I mean, we're working on adding more smart contract kind of stuff to Litecoin via Smart Crypto Vault. So with that, potentially we have a better solution.
Gotcha. That's pretty cool. Yeah. So what is Smart Crypto Vault? I'm kind of I'm pretty involved in the Decred community, so it's hard to keep up with all the projects.
So Smart Crypto Vault is it's basically MAST, which is Merkleized Abstract Syntax Tree, with covenants. And so MAST is the ability to kind of put a lot of smart contract, a lot of scripts into one Merkle tree, so that you save space and you only kind of expose the script when you use it.
Gotcha.
So there's a privacy and kind of space saving feature of that, where you can put a lot of smart contract kind of code to control a transaction, but then you don't have to actually put all that into the blockchain until you actually use it. You can probably Google MAST with Bitcoin. There's quite a few articles on it. It's very innovative, and it's very cool. And we can only do it because we have SegWit, where the witness data is in its own Merkle tree. So
and then Smart Crypto Vault is
so in the other part, like covenants, where you can create some kind of vault transactions where you can have a you can have like a locked transaction that's like a 2 of 2 transaction. But if your account gets hacked and someone's got into it, if someone got access to one key, they can broadcast a transaction to take the coin, but then it will be locked for X amount of time. So if you use both keys, you can kind of pull the coins back. So it's a way to secure the coins in a way where there's a time lock on like a vault. You can read, Google covenants with Bitcoin, and you can read more about that.
Gotcha.
Awesome.
That sounds really cool.
So it's just adding more like smart contract features to Bitcoin and Litecoin. It's not going to be as feature rich as kind of Ethereum, but it's enough to do a lot of cool things on Litecoin, like native Litecoin blockchain.
Gotcha. Yeah, that sounds really cool. I'm looking forward to reading more about that. So, I have a couple questions around the August 1st date. So I guess I'll start with the first one. MIT, I guess, released a page that says, something about Litecoin. I think it's like litecoin.mit.edu or something is the page. So do you know anything about what's going to happen on? I think the countdown is on August 1st too.
I don't know what that page is about, but I'm not going to assume that it's an official MIT release until I hear otherwise, because it's very easy for a student or staff member to actually obtain that domain name, litecoin.mit.edu. All you have to do is, if your username is X, then your domain is x.mit.edu, and your email is x@mit.edu. So it could just be a student deciding to pick the username Litecoin and to create this page to kind of pump Litecoin. So I sent an email to them and I didn't get a reply. So I'm going to assume it's a hoax until I hear otherwise.
Gotcha. So it's smart. Those MIT kids are smart. So there's another thing happening on August 1st, and it revolves around Bitcoin primarily and user-activated soft forks and BIP 148. So I was wondering, what are your opinions on UASF and BIP 148, and what do you think is going to happen on August 1st?
So I think so for UASF. I think the kind of the idea is good that users actually have control over Bitcoin or Litecoin because users give the coin value. So if all the users for Bitcoin are running UASF code, then it's going to happen, because if it doesn't, like, the exchanges and the miners have to kind of follow that blockchain, otherwise they won't have any users on the other chain, right? Yep. So, but what's most important for UASF is to actually get all the exchanges to be running UASF code, for the exchanges to represent their users, right? So if the exchanges are running UASF code, then miners have to comply, because miners won't be able to sell coins on the different chain, right? If they don't follow the UASF chain, then their mine coins will be worthless, right? And the idea is that if there are two chains, and let's say exchanges support multiple chains, if users all want UASF, all want SegWit, then the UASF coin will be worth more. And if it's worth more, then miners will automatically mine that coin because they'll make more money. So that's kind of like the idea behind it. But it's definitely risky if, like, if the miners are not mining that and not enough users are on the UASF chain and not enough exchanges are on it. So so that's risky. But what's happening is with SegWit 2x, supposedly the code will be out soon, and that's kind of, and if 80% of the miners are signaling signaling SegWit 2x, then SegWit will happen, and on August 1st there won't be a split, because all the miners and pools will actually signal for SegWit on August 1st, and we'll be okay. At least that's the idea.
Yeah, if they signal late, that could be a problem.
Yeah,
and that would be a weird problem, right? Because then you'd have two groups of people who both want to activate SegWit that are threatening to fork from one another to do it, which is really weird. But I think they'll fall in line before August 1st. I think there's too much at stake. I think everyone knows it.
I think so too.
Yeah,
I think so too. I think the riskier thing is what happens in November or December, when
that's
3 months after SegWit.
a whole other thing. Yeah.
Well, and on top of that, I mean, so let's say SegWit 2x does get activated. What's going to happen with Bitcoin Core? Because pretty much all of Bitcoin Core does not approve of SegWit 2x, and it's this compromise of Bitcoin Unlimited of we want a hard fork, and and then Bitcoin Core and a lot of the group want SegWit, which is a soft fork. So SegWit 2x is, let's compromise with hard fork. So
yeah, I mean, I've written on Twitter about SegWit 2x. I think it's quite crazy that you would run this new code with like a couple weeks of peer review and do a hard fork in 3 months, and kind of try to get rid of all the Bitcoin Core devs in a way. Or this is something that pretty much like all the core devs are against, and the core devs are like the smartest and brightest cryptocurrency people in the space, right? It's a meritocracy. You don't get to work on Bitcoin Core unless you actually know what you're doing. Yeah. So it's crazy. This is a $40 billion kind of market cap, and we are just kind of, I don't know, it's crazy.
Yeah, and I guess this, kind of segues into to Decred. It seems like UASF essentially wants this ability to, have their holdings of the currency or have some representation of, I'm a holder of Bitcoin. I want the direction of Bitcoin to shift this way. And obviously, that wasn't built into the original design of Bitcoin. And the miners themselves are actually the ones who have all the control. Essentially, getting all the economic and big nodes online is definitely a way to go about that. But you still have the issue of you need miners to support it no matter what. So I guess
miners don't have all the control, right? Everybody plays their part. So like miners can't really, like, for example, they can't just start mining and create more coins for themselves, right? They can't change the 21 million Bitcoin limit, right? If they do, then no one will support that coin. So they don't have all the control. So and if they stop mining the coin, then there's no security and it loses value. So you need miners, but they don't have all the control, right? So everybody has kind of a little bit of say. So now it's a question of who really gets the final say.
Absolutely. And
it's better if everybody works together, right?
Yeah. I mean, and and that's what I think everybody at the end of the day wants what's best for Bitcoin. And people this is a very contentious argument on how we get to that point. Is Bitcoin gonna be the coin that supports billions of people and handles payments for everything? And I think a lot of people want to see that, and some people just want to see it used as a reserve currency that supports a lot of other stuff. So and does the decentralization and scaling become an issue? Because like Craig Wright says, do we need to run $20,000 nodes to support this type of network? And not a lot of people agree with that. So I guess what I'm trying to do is segue into the topic of Decred. And for all the watcher or listeners out there, viewers that don't know, Charlie co-wrote a paper called Proof of Activity that was actually one of the birthing ideas behind Decred. So Charlie, I was wondering if you could talk about your history involved in the creation behind Decred. And for those that don't know, Decred is a currency that essentially has governance built straight into its blockchain that allows voting of the control of the future of the protocol to control how we handle decisions like scaling. So I was wondering if you could talk about that.
Yeah, so back then in like 2011, 2012, I was I had my hands in a lot of different things. And for example, I thought of like a way to do a more fair way to do mining, pool mining kind of reward. So another thing I worked on was this proof of activity idea. It was basically people wanted to explore proof of stake, and a way to do that, one thing I thought of was proof of activity, where there is this kind of where people who hold coins sign blocks, right? And if blocks, the more signatures a block has, then the more secure it is, because people are online with their coins and they can sign a block if they get randomly chosen to sign that block. So if someone attacks the network, then if they fork it kind of in secret, they won't be able to sign as many blocks because the coins that they own won't be randomly chosen as often as the whole network. So the winning chain is one that has the longest chain plus like more signed blocks. There's a simple calculation to decide which chain is better. So it's much harder for someone to attack a chain in secret because they don't have enough stake. And Decred loosely kind of use that idea with a hybrid proof of stake, proof of work, where you buy tickets to a lottery, right? So you have to use your stake to kind of buy tickets where your coins are locked up, and then you randomly get chosen to vote, and you're basically that controls which chain is the winning chain. And the nice thing about this voting is you can also vote on like hard forking rule changes or just any proposals. And that's basically what Decred is all about, where users not only are they protecting the coin with votes, they're also changing, like voting on how the direction of the coin.
Yeah. And, I think that's one of the biggest selling points to me on Decred. And then on top of that, I think, the developers behind Decred are pretty phenomenal. So we're lucky to have such a strong development team. Another thing that really kind of spurred my curiosity is, so you got involved in the Decred community a few months ago. And I was really surprised when I learned that, your proof of activity paper was one of the main papers that contributed to the idea behind Decred. So I was wondering, why were you not, did you know about Decred earlier on? And, why didn't you, become a supporter sooner rather than later of the project?
Yeah, so when I came out with proof of activity, it wasn't really, I wasn't spending a lot of time on it. It was just kind of a neat idea I came up with. And back then, Litecoin was already running, and people were asking me, will I add it to Litecoin? Will I switch proof of work on Litecoin to proof of activity? And I basically said it was too hard to kind of switch that on the fly for Litecoin and too risky. It would be cool if a new coin would try this idea out. So someone did. His username was Taco Time. He decided to work on MC2. I think that's what it was called, and that's based on the proof of activity work. And then that project merged with Decred, what BTCD team was doing, and it became Decred. So I wasn't really following MC2 because it was years before we actually got something working. And then I think I remember hearing about Decred a bit, but I didn't really have time to kind of follow up on it until recently. Earlier this year, someone on the Decred team pinged me and asked me what my thoughts are on Decred, and then that kind of reminded me I've heard of this project before, so I looked into it more and realized it's actually something that's working in practice. It's live production of something based off of proof of activity. So I guess that got me more excited about it. So I looked into it more and found out how awesome it was.
Awesome. And, and then I guess, so are one of the main reasons you support the Decred project is, I guess, your proof of activity. So, are there any other reasons besides, your original kind of taking that original idea and turning it into something that's working? Are there any other reasons why you've become a community member and stakeholder and so forth?
Yeah, Decred is not just, my original idea was pretty simple, but it added voting, which allows users to kind of control the direction of the project. And recently, the whole block size debate on Bitcoin really shows why something like this is needed. Because right now, you just don't know what people want from Bitcoin. You're on Twitter or Reddit, you see all these people like arguing, but you don't really know, like, do majority of people actually want like bigger blocks, or do majority of people actually want smaller blocks but more like more security and decentralization, or do they even care? Right? It's pretty much impossible to kind of poll or survey the users of Bitcoin in a reliable way. Where with Decred, it's actually possible to do that via the voting system. So that's kind of innovation that I'm excited about. And we saw the first vote get passed, where people want to fix the staking algorithm to make it better. And people also voted they want the developers to start researching adding Lightning networks to Decred, And this is something that we know kind of for sure that that's what the community wants, as opposed to just loosely be able to tell what people want. So I guess that's why I think Decred, the project Decred, has some value, right? It's doing something that pretty much no one else in this community is doing, which is, at least it's one of the first ones to do it, which is the ability to kind of do on-chain hard fork based off of stake voting.
Yeah, and and another thing for the viewers that don't know, so when a fix like the staking difficulty algorithm fix, which also, if for you guys don't know, Charlie actually contributed to that proposal. He's one of the many community members that contributed to helping fix that. And also, fixing that algorithm, it's actually pre-coded into the release where we vote. And you lock up your funds for essentially up to 142 days. And then when your ticket gets called, you get your funds back plus a little reward. But then, if that vote passes after a lock-in period of about a month, the fork actually activates on-chain automatically, which I think is a really innovative thing for a system like this versus, voting and signaling and then going and working on it, like some of these other systems that are that have governance built in. So,
yep.
So we also have a proposal system coming online soon, and one of our Decred community members had a good question for you. They said, Charlie, in the proposal system, for those of you that don't know, and Decred is essentially, you'll pay a little bit of Decred, you'll submit a proposal to the network, and what it'll allow you to do is vote on our development organization subsidy, giving you however much funds that you're asking for to do something for the Decred network or whatever. So somebody had a good question. If you could submit one proposal once the system goes live, what would it be?
For Decred?
Yeah, or well, I mean, the funds could be used for anything. So it's obviously it's probably going to need to be for Decred in some way because you might not get as much adoption. But
yeah, well, one thing, assuming that Lightning Network is done on Decred, one cool thing would be to do a decentralized exchange, right, via Lightning Network and cross-chain atomic swaps. So that's what I would propose, I guess. Build a decentralized exchange that would swap Decred with any other coin that also has Lightning.
Yes, I think that would be really cool. You got my vote for that proposal.
I'm not going to do it. Someone else can do the work.
Well, at least you'll have the funding behind it, so you can give the money to somebody else.
Lightning available on Litecoin yet on the Litecoin network, or is that still in development?
It works. So Lightning, the developers are still working on kind of improving the infrastructure. Right now, they're not really focused on the UI, so it's mostly like command line. You can create a node and create payment channels and start transferring coins. I think it's going to be slow in terms of building like a great UI for Lightning Network. Like what I envision in the future is that users don't really care like what technology is used to send payments. They just want to send payments, right? So for example, like when you swipe a credit card, you don't care like how many banks it goes through for approval, like how the money flow actually works. You just care that you get approved and you get the product that you're buying, right? So same for eventually in the future for Bitcoin is you send money to the merchant, you send Bitcoin to the merchant or Litecoin. You don't care if it's using on-chain transactions, it's using Lightning, it's using some other form of kind of payments, right? All you care is that the money gets there and you get the product. So, so you will need a UI where the recipient is some sort of address that you can actually send on-chain to, or you can send Lightning to, right? So how that is implemented is kind of yet to be seen.
Do you envision? It sounds like you do, but when the Lightning Network is up and running, that I'd always imagined it being used like from business to business or stuff on the back end. But it sounds like you're seeing it like if you just have two arbitrary users on the network, that they ought to be able to pay each other like one-time payment through Lightning. Oh, good. That's interesting. I hope it ends up working out that way. That would be really really powerful thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, it's still to be determined how things will work, like how the Lightning Network will be, whether it's a lot of kind of big hubs where you go through, or if it's all more like everybody, like all the nodes are kind of decentralized. So it doesn't, in the end, it doesn't really matter. You just have to be able to pay someone,
right?
As long as you can find a route to them.
Yeah.
Right.
Having a single address that you use to pay either through the Lightning Network or through directly on chain would be perfect. That would be great.
Yeah. So that's how that is done is still to be determined, but we have smart people working on it. So.
We're going to dive more back into Lightning Network soon for all the viewers out there, but I want to pull back to the governance topic. So with Litecoin, do you foresee there arising governance issues as the currency grows in market cap and could potentially be that silver to Bitcoin? Do you see governance being an issue with Litecoin?
So I guess there is advantages and disadvantages of me being around, where I kind of have a lot of influence, but that's also if I start doing stupid shit, or if I get compromised in some way, right? Then the network could be harmed, right, by me. So we'll see how that works. Maybe in a few years, I might have to kind of step away and say, that's it. It's too much of a liability for me to be around.
Yeah, I mean, we saw Vitalik's death get faked, and the price dropped instantly with Ethereum.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, in this way where if something happens to me, Litecoin doesn't die because of it. Yeah. I hope Litecoin price won't drop because something happened to me, but yeah, so it's definitely a liability, but it's also good where I can help kind of push Litecoin towards my vision, right? I can, I think SegWit passing on Litecoin earlier this year would have been much harder without me kind of pushing or convincing the miners and pools to kind of believe in my vision. And as you see with Bitcoin, no one's in charge, so it's hard to get anything done, right? It's kind of like a benevolent dictator versus a democracy. Yeah. Right? In the US, things are just inefficient. It's just hard for us to get stuff done because of the democracy, right? Whereas if you have a dictator, then they can do anything they want, pretty much. A few years ago, I went back to China, and I just heard that if the Chinese government wanted to kind of improve a certain area of the country, they can just tell everyone to move out. And they're going to tear everything down and build skyscrapers. And after 2 years, come on back in. We just rebuilt your city. This is not something that we can do in the U.S. You can't just force people to leave their city and rebuild it for them. But hey, when you have a communist government, you can do that, and it's efficient. There's just no right.
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
So it's a trade-off, right? So. But yeah, so it's good and bad.
Definitely agree with that. I think it's definitely good having the project creator around. I think if Satoshi was still around, we would probably be having this Skilly debate. Craig Wright says otherwise, but
and we see both groups kind of like saying that this is what Satoshi would have done or something like that. It's like, read the white paper, this is what Satoshi wanted. Or just like use one of his like forum posts and kind of claim that's proof that we should do things this way.
Yeah, I think Roger Ver likes to take a lot of stuff out of context sometimes and say, this is what Satoshi wanted. And it's, there's really no way to say what he wanted, because then when he was thinking about the network, it wasn't what it is now. I mean, it's really hard to say what anybody would want unless, you were actually able to talk to him now. So.
Yeah, I mean, even back then, like most people would think that, hey, we just like increase the block size when the time comes. A lot of people have changed their mind over the years and become more conservative and realize that we can't take these risks, and decentralization and security is of the utmost important. Once you lose decentralization, then
it's just a bank.
It's like a little bit more decentralized version of PayPal.
Yeah.
Right. So do we want that? I mean, some people want that, right? But so that's why the reason why we have such a big debate right now is because in the early years, Bitcoin was pretty much perfect. It satisfied both camps, right? Because things were cheap. And the reason why it satisfied both camps is because of the mining rewards. All the miners are getting paid by 50 Bitcoin a block. And they don't care that the fees are low. You can do micro payments because there's very little users, and everybody who wants to send Bitcoin can send it for cents or below a cent, right? So it's like both camps are happy and thought that Bitcoin is like the perfect thing. And over time, as we get more and more people and the block rewards are decreasing, kind of you now have to choose, right? There's now a trade-off. Do you want to keep like decentralization and security, or do you want faster, cheaper payments that support like 1 billion people on chain? And you can't have both anymore. So yeah, and both sides are saying that their vision of Bitcoin is getting destroyed.
Yeah, and so I mean, it really is a really sensitive topic, and I think there are future solutions to this, but I think one of the great things about this whole space is that we have multiple projects going on at all times trying to solve different things. So maybe Bitcoin does retain, that thing that is just never going to change, and maybe that's not a bad thing. And we allow other projects like Litecoin or Decred or Monero or some of the other more highly respected projects in the space to continue to grow in different ways that Bitcoin can.
And if Bitcoin is like the decentralized gold, right? It's still very valuable. I mean, it's still, you can still send, even if it costs $10 to send a Bitcoin payment, you're getting is something incredible, where it's a payment that can't be reversed, right? And it's borderless, and nothing else can compete, right? You can't send gold like that. You can't send a wire that way. That's that efficient and that can't be reversed, and that's cheap compared to wire fees. So even then, it's still like an amazing thing, and you can have other currencies to fill the other niches, right?
Yeah. And so, and I guess going back to the topic of Litecoin and Decred. So, do you foresee that our two projects ever collaborating and working together in a way that could benefit each other?
I mean, potentially with Lightning Network, like a atomic swap could happen between the two. We can work together on that. There may be other things we can work together on.
Awesome. Yeah. All right. So, all right. You answered that question too fast, so.
Yeah. Or maybe we should just merge the two. We should just merge the two chain and call it Litecoin or something like that.
There you go. Yeah, I like that. That's not a bad idea. Well, you know, I think there could be some cool things that could happen. And I've been talking about, you know, with Dave C and some of the other devs at Decred is, you know, how could we take the governance system that Decred's built and allow other currencies to benefit off of that technology? And maybe with Lightning Network and atomic swaps, that might be possible. I don't, you know, this is above my pay grade, and but I feel like that is something that Decred could offer to other blockchains that, you know, could benefit the entire space, which would be cool. So and again, I'm not a developer, or I am a developer. I'm just not a blockchain developer. So are there any features that you would want to import from Decred into Litecoin that you foresee in the future?
I mean, it'd be cool to have the governance feature in Litecoin, but it would be very hard to do it. Kind of very risky to kind of switch the proof of work to something different. I mean, that's why like what Ethereum is doing is pretty crazy, trying to switch to proof of stake, like such a big market cap coin. To do it is, yeah, especially because they used to have this this difficulty bomb, right? Or maybe they still have it, where they purposely created kind of a suicide pill where they would have to switch to proof of stake, and the other chain, the proof of work chain, would just die because the difficulty would get so high. So miners can't kind of keep the original chain alive unless they hard fork. But now I think they have to remove that difficulty bomb because they don't have proof of stake ready yet in time. So if they hard fork to remove that difficulty bomb, then when they actually hard fork to proof of stake, miners will keep the other chain alive, and who knows? It's going to be a hard switch.
We'll have meth and peth and etc. Well, all these varieties of Ethereum. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah. Awesome for traders, I guess. Actually, let me go sell some Decred right now.
Oh man, come on. No, Charlie, you're supposed to stake Decred. Keep calm, stake the Decred.
Yeah, one thing with Decred, it's still hard to kind of do staking, right? It would be cool to have more user interface for staking, or something that will let you do staking automatically.
Yeah. Well, you know, in talking about that, I think with the SDiff algorithm getting switched, for all the users that don't know, really, you shouldn't, like, soon enough, you really shouldn't wait to buy tickets. Like, before, most people don't know this, but the price of a ticket would vary drastically. I mean, it would go up like 100 Decred, 150 Decred, back down to 100, and then it would finally become cheap where everybody would purchase them because it made sense again. Hopefully that should be fixed now. So what I think, I'm hoping that there's not going to be as much competition. So you're not going to have to like vary your fees that you're paying to buy tickets. You should just be able to put your bids in to buy tickets. And you know, I think that fixing this algorithm is going to make a huge effect on adopting ticket purchasing in the future. So it should be kind of one click, in my opinion, going forward. So
yeah, I think it's huge. It should be a lot easier. Just buy whenever you have funds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and you know, ticket buyer too, you're not going to have to do weird, crazy configurations like you had to before for it to automatically purchase tickets and not like rape yourself on funds, on fees. So I think that's going to have a big effect on the future of that. But so in my last question regarding kind of Decred, before we kind of move into Lightning Network, is do you think Decred's ever going to get listed on GDAX or Coinbase? And you know, I guess what does it take for a coin to get to, you know, to be important enough to get added by them?
I would say kind of trade volume and interest, right? And in the end, companies only interested in making money, right?
Yeah.
So if if you like, one of the reasons why Litecoin got added is because it just had huge trading volumes, right? And also it was easy to add Litecoin because it's so similar to Bitcoin, right? And having me work there didn't hurt either. So, but then in the end, it was about trading volume, right? We had Litecoin added to GDAX, but then the reason why we decided to work on adding Litecoin to Coinbase is because it was getting so much traction after like the Segwit news and everything, and the volumes on GDAX were just incredible, and so it made a lot of sense financially to add Litecoin to Coinbase. So we did. In terms of another coin, the one thing about like Coinbase versus an exchange like Poloniex is that Coinbase is kind of like more selective in terms of which coins it adds, right? It still hasn't added like ETC. So it would, so there would be coins that Coinbase wouldn't add, but I don't think Decred would be on the list of coins Coinbase wouldn't add. But then it's more about like user interest and volume. So when Decred gets high up there in kind of top 5 coin or top 10, then it will be more likely for Coinbase to add it.
So do you think GDAX is going to be adding more coins coming here in the future? Is that kind of, do you think that's on their radar? Are they going to try to be the more prestigious version of Poloniex? Or?
They're definitely going to add more coins. Time frame wise, I don't know.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. All right. So I know that Austin is anxious to talk more about Lightning Network. So I'll let him take this next question.
Yeah, we've slipped some Lightning Network questions in there here and there. So you're, as far as like ETA, when it's ready to use, you say it's already like already working. Not a real nice user interface. In principle, is it working well enough that if you had 2 coins with implementations of Lightning, that you could start doing cross-chain atomic swaps now?
Not easily. I don't think that's so. Cross-chain atomic swaps isn't high on the list of kind of to-do items for Lightning Network developers, right?
Gotcha.
So I mean, obviously, like they want to make sure the experience for one network is good before they work on that, right? I mean, it's a very cool idea and technology, but like you kind of really need both networks to be up and running and have like good connections, but at least they're thinking about it and they're designing the code and everything to support multiple networks at the same time, right? You can run your Lightning Network daemon and you can specify which networks you want it to be running on. So if you specify Litecoin and Bitcoin and some other coins, then it can run the network on multiple coins. And once you have nodes on multiple coins, then they can start advertising like exchange rates, right?
Yeah.
They can advertise, I will trade Bitcoin for Litecoin at this exchange rate. And then like you have a network where you can see different nodes advertising exchange rates and you can go through them to get to the other network.
Right.
But routing on one coin, one network is already hard enough. So I don't think anyone's thought about how they would do routing on, like combined routing on multiple coins networks, right? So
that's good. So
it's very cool, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So that's I guess one of the questions we wanted to ask were so there are a lot of different
Applications
of the Lightning Network. Thank you. Yeah. So you can, for example, there's the cross-chain atomic swaps. Of course, you have real quick micropayments. We're wondering if you have any sort of applications of the Lightning Network that you're really excited to see, if there are any that are at the top of your list. And just, I know you don't have a call, but if you do, approximate ETAs.
I mean, the first, I think Lightning Network, the most important thing is just payments, right? At least initially. So I haven't thought too much more than that, right? If we get payments done well, where you can just go to online or go to a store and actually pay someone via Lightning Network, and it will do the routing correctly, and it will find you, and it will kind of send the transaction instantly. I think that's the most important thing. And the reason why like Lightning Network is such a good kind of feature is because there's it's kind of layered on top of Litecoin or Bitcoin. It does instant payments, right? It's actually instant. It's irreversible. It's based off of Bitcoin crypto. And lastly, like the fees will be lower, and the fees will be, another thing is that the fees will be kind of will be related to the amount you're sending. So right now, Bitcoin and Litecoin fees depends on the size of the transaction, and most people don't understand how that works, right? You can send 0.01 Bitcoin, or you can send let's say you send 1 Bitcoin. Sometimes it can be a small transaction that's only like 300 bytes. Sometimes it could be like a huge transaction because you're using multiple inputs. And as a user, you don't know how big of a transaction it is. So the fees are hard to calculate. So your wallet has to calculate for you. And then you'll be surprised that like people have posted on Twitter saying that I sent like 1 Bitcoin and it cost me like 5 Bitcoin in fees. It's because the transaction is huge. It's trying to like combine 1,000 inputs, right? So fees based on transaction size is just confusing for users. With Lightning Network, the fees will be based on the amount, because with Lightning Network, the kind of the underlying like limited resource is the amount and not size in bytes for the transaction.
Yeah.
So that will make payments more sane, kind of.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exciting. Forward to seeing that come along over the next year or so.
All right. So, okay. So do you think, well, this is kind of going back to Litecoin again. And I mean, do you think that Litecoin is going to have struggle scaling as it becomes more and more popular?
So Litecoin has already 4 times the block size compared to Bitcoin. And now that we have SegWit and Lightning coming, I don't foresee Litecoin having any scaling issue in the near term. I mean, even if Litecoin is as popular as Bitcoin is today, it still won't have an issue, right? Because we have effectively 4 megabyte block sizes. And if it does become a problem, then it's a good problem to have. That means Litecoin is like amazingly popular. But I think we are lucky enough to have SegWit and Lightning Network that we potentially may never need to scale on-chain, and all the scaling off-chain, like Lightning Network and potentially future technologies, is enough to keep to keep all Litecoin on-chain transactions within the block size limit.
That's cool.
Yeah, and if we do need to scale on-chain, we'll do that. Yeah.
So, and future-wise of Litecoin specifically, where do you see Litecoin heading directionally? Like, what's your vision for? Do you want Litecoin to be, more of a payment currency, or do you want it to still be that kind of reserve hold of value, or some mixture of both? Or
my idea is that Bitcoin is the ultimate store of value currency, and Litecoin could be the ultimate payments currency. So in terms of what I want to see Litecoin, where I want to see Litecoin grow, is I guess 2 things. One is what we're working on right now with the Smart Crypto Vault, is just adding more smart contract, more programmability to Litecoin, so that it can be more useful for programmable money, potentially more useful for kind of Internet of Things payments. The second area I want to see Litecoin grow is privacy. So one thing that I realized early on about Bitcoin is it's pretty much like perfect money, except for one area, which is that it's not fungible.
Yeah.
Right. So Bitcoins you receive all have a history, and potentially that could affect whether or not you can spend them in the future. So as an example, like working at Coinbase, I've heard many stories where we shut down an account because someone sent their Bitcoins to a gambling site or use it to buy drugs, right? It's just because we know what they did with it, we can't service them anymore. And that's something that's not really good for money, right? If you got two $20 bills and you can't spend one of them not because it's counterfeit, but because it has a taint of like some drugs on it. That's just bad currency, right? So one thing I'll eventually work on adding to Litecoin, or we'll work on adding to Litecoin, is potentially something like confidential transactions, and so that you can kind of hide the amount. And with something like CoinJoin or something similar like Tumblebit, you can also kind of hide the sender and recipient, so we can potentially just make it much more private and fungible. But that's still kind of far in the future. It's not this year or potentially even next year.
Yeah. I think those are two of the biggest issues are governance, obviously, with the future of being able to make decisions as a network. But absolutely, second after that is fungibility, because this is going to become a big issue in the future, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. So I think Bitcoin is going to need it, and other projects as well.
Yeah, and it's not just about like doing illegal things. It's more about like not telling people how much money you have, right? Yep. Right now, if I got paid in Litecoin, someone paid me $10,000 in Litecoin, and I send that to buy coffee, then the coffee shop now knows that I at least hold $10,000 worth of Litecoin, right? Which is kind of silly, right? Why? And if I don't want them to know that, I have to manually do something to kind of hide the amount, which is just kind of, it's hard for a normal person to use if you have to think about that.
Yeah. Like have a hot wallet, like a separate wallet that you probably, like let's say Decred, you bought some Decred off of an exchange and you had it sent, some of it to another wallet and then, some to your main wallet.
Yeah, I mean, most of the advanced Bitcoin Litecoin users these days actively think about which coins they want to send where, right? They have like a wallet that's, if they buy from the exchange, they might buy a lot, or they have savings that has a lot of coins. You don't want people to know how many coins you have, so you have to actively decide how to manage that, which is cumbersome.
Yeah, and then you want Litecoin to be more of a merchant coin. What? So like, are you guys doing anything right now to handle getting more merchants on board to accept Litecoin?
Not yet. At least right now, what's more important is make sure that all the exchanges support Litecoin. So Litecoin is probably one of the most supported exchange coins other than Bitcoin right now. So it's important to be able to buy and sell Litecoin with your local currency. And once Litecoin is exchangeable everywhere, and Lightning Network works on Litecoin, then I think we could start focusing on merchants.
Gotcha.
Because even though Litecoin right now fees are low and transactions are faster than Bitcoin, it's still not a compelling reason to use it as a payment method. Because people are so used to Visa, and Visa just works, right? People don't have to worry about it. And right now, the reason why Bitcoin merchant hasn't really taken off is because it's just not better than Visa. It's a worse user experience. Mm-hmm. So only people who actually have Bitcoin and want to kind of help make it more successful is using it. normal everyday person has no reason to use Bitcoin to buy stuff.
This is true. Using your Visa card is much easier. At times can be a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
Um,
You always regret using Bitcoin to buy stuff.
oh, I know, man. I know. You're like, God, that computer I bought or whatever at the time. You're like, God, that thing's worth so much money. um, so.
Yeah, one of the features we added to Coinbase was whenever you spend Bitcoin, you can have an option to buy back your Bitcoin because you don't want to lose out on it.
Yeah.
But then, like, if you think about it, that's stupid. You're spending Bitcoin, sending it to someone who converts it automatically to US dollar, and then you're spending US dollar to buy the Bitcoin back, and you're paying fees on both sides. So why not just send them US dollar?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, unless you're paying somebody like an individual for work or something, then I can see the value there.
I mean, the reserve currency is still US dollar or whatever local currency you're using. So until maybe many years in the future where people will be pricing stuff in crypto, then that will become, then we'll start using it more.
Yeah. That'll be interesting the day that, we're seeing like Bitcoin prices in the stores. I mean, I don't know how that would work since it's deflationary. They need like
I don't know.
digital price tags everywhere. So
yeah.
And one of the future kind of questions about Litecoin. So do you guys plan on ever adding like token type operations on top, like the ability like with Ethereum and like Counterparty had on Bitcoin and Mastercoin, but I guess more integrated into the protocol directly, like the ability to create tokens on top of Litecoin?
Well, like Omni, also known as Mastercoin, has ported their stuff over to Litecoin.
Okay.
And like Tether is going to start supporting Litecoin, so that's cool. I hear that Counterparty or a group of people are working on kind of deploying Counterparty on Litecoin also. And one thing we're doing, like the Smart Crypto Vault project, adds more abilities with tokens, so we can start using. It will add the ability to create tokens on Litecoin natively. So we're exploring that also with Smart Crypto Vault.
Yeah. So this kind of segues into this topic, but like, what are your opinions on the ICO craze and this huge crypto bubble that seems to be forming around ICOs and tokens, specifically on Ethereum? Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah. So I haven't bought any ICO tokens, and I don't plan to. I'm very wary of ICOs because most of them are money grabs because they see how easy it is to raise money with ICO. And I think the SEC will come down hard on ICOs because it's basically like it's like an IPO without going through the normal regulation, right?
Yep.
So, and I think it's going to end badly. I think we're starting to see that with the current crash. It's just that Ethereum price has been propped up so high with the ICO, and with every new ICO, people need to buy Ether and spend that to get to buy the ICO tokens. So it's an inflated market, and when the ICOs companies start to sell their Ethers, it's going to start crashing, and then when Ether starts crashing, all the other ICOs will see that, hey, we better sell our Ethers right now, or else it might not be worth enough money for us. So I think we're starting to see that, and that's why Ethereum is starting to crash. So yeah, I think I'm not a big fan of ICOs. Most of them are scams. Most of them don't have no reason to create a token. They just want the money. And yeah, most of the teams and ideas are not that good.
Mhm.
Like,
Yep.
it's just people have a lot of money to throw around. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think there are reasons for tokens, but a lot of the reasons that we're seeing now are just not great reasons. And
Yeah.
you know, I think I think this ICO craze is, you know, in some ways, you know, there's probably some good that'll come out of this because I think it'll attract a lot of new investors into the main currencies like Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum. Because in order to buy, well, I guess Ethereum you can buy on Coinbase now, but in order to buy a lot of these other coins, you need Bitcoin or you need Ethereum. You need to be in crypto to do it. So to me, that's one of the better benefits of this whole sort of thing. But yeah, I'm not really a big fan of the scams. And
So they come for the ICOs, but they stay for because of Bitcoin.
yeah, there you go. Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
I mean, because at the end of the day, everybody's. I mean, what are they doing? They're going to trade their ICO coins to get back into Bitcoin or Ethereum or whatever. So, I mean, I don't know. So hopefully that, you know, it just continues to pull more money in. But I worry about a lot of the projects that are doing ICOs because I think some people could potentially end up in jail. I don't know. Outside of I hope not, and it seems to be attracting regulation in a bad way. But you know, it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean we're Wild West, right? So
yeah, definitely. So I guess speaking of scams, are there any projects in particular that you you know, feel that might be you know, scammy, you know, maybe in the top 10 or top 20 that you really worry that, you know, people are investing too heavily in or you know, speaking about too much? I don't know.
You mean other than Decred?
Yeah. Well, you know, Decred is, in my opinion, a pretty good project, and it's got good people behind it with good intentions. So, but
okay, so I mean, other than the ICOs, right? I think most of the ICOs are scams. So, like in terms of, they may not be outright scams, but they potentially don't have. They have a pretty weak team. They have a weak idea. They don't need a token. They just realize that they can create a token, create a white paper that full of jargons, and create a pretty website, a good name, and be able to like raise hundreds of millions of dollars. So in some sense, most of them are scams. I mean, there might be a few good ones, but it's really hard to tell, right? I think like very few projects actually need the token. I haven't really looked at a lot of them. Like I know like Augur wouldn't work without the token, so they would need it. Actually, let me step away for a couple minutes. I have a package I have to pick up. 1 second. Okay. Talk among yourself.
Okay. So Austin.
Yeah.
So sorry, we lost Charlie, guys.
Yeah, he's back.
So I guess, you know, we could talk a little bit about
Scammy projects.
Scammy projects.
I think.
Yeah. So Austin, do you have any opinions on scammy projects?
Ripple kind of makes me mad a lot. I can't believe someone just told me, I didn't check, but I guess they recently went up, what, like 50 times in price?
Yeah.
Which that shouldn't even be around. Oh, good, you're back. We were just talking about scammy projects, Ripple in particular, but.
Yeah, so Ripple.
Missing its like first 35,000 blocks, I think, or something.
What about it?
I think Ricardo told me this, but I believe it's missing its like first 30,000 blocks for some reason. Like,
yeah. I'm not sure if Ripple's blockchain actually works. So supposedly it's pretty centralized. It's controlled by nodes that they run themselves. Actually, don't take my word for it. I'm not sure. I just hear rumors. I don't know for sure. And kind of the coin is was pre-mined, like 100 billion coins were pre-mined, and supposedly they use it they give investors the coins and stuff. So I don't really know what the reason is to have the XRP coin is.
Yeah.
And
I wouldn't call them a scam.
Yeah, and the
The market cap,
right?
yeah, it's huge.
Billions of coins held out of circulation, and you can trade
Yeah.
to the left.
Yeah.
And
So you just have a few coins go up in value, and
Yeah.
then voila, your whole market
Like
cap
how many
is.
billions they have. Yeah. I was thinking about
Yeah.
picking up a coin where you have like, I don't know, 1 trillion or 100 trillion coins in reserve, and then just have one coin on the market.
You just
and
distribute that one coin.
top of all of the market cap charts.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's doing some interesting things, but I personally don't hold any Ripple. Actually, I did hold some Ripple because they were giving it away for free, like 5 years ago.
When it was closed source.
Yeah, and I got some, and I was sitting there in my Ripple account, and it was worth like $10 for the longest time. And recently, it was worth like a few $1,000s. So I'm like, okay, I better like check it again and cash it out. So I cashed it out into Bitcoin.
Smart.
So speaking of more scammy projects, or not scammy projects, but other projects, Dash is similar in a lot of ways to Decred. Like, what are your kind of opinions on Dash?
Dash, I think Dash, I don't really like Dash that much because to me, it's a lot of marketing. The technology is not very strong. I mean, the master nodes is a neat idea, but I don't think it works that well. And its privacy is overrated. Like, I haven't really looked too much into its privacy, but I've read multiple accounts from trusted sources that their privacy is pretty much broken. And I trust the people that talk about it. So personally, I haven't really looked into it that much. So I don't hold Dash.
Will be closing in 30.
What was that? So I don't hold any Dash myself, and I see no reason to.
Awesome. Yeah, sorry, I'm at the library. They're closing soon. So this is how hardcore I am for all of you Decred Assembly fans. I made sure that I got optimal internet for this interview because I live out in the country and I don't have formal internet at my house, so I have to use like a hotspot. So this is for you guys out there. But so I guess we've talked about some projects that you think are not necessarily the best or good investments or best technology. So what are some of your favorite projects? Obviously Decred, but I know you are also a supporter of Monero and I think Ethereum Classic. I'm not sure. Maybe you could mention some of the ones that you do like.
Yeah. So so when Ethereum hard forked, I was very against the hard fork because I felt like it went against my principle. Where Ethereum was supposed to be kind of like unbreakable code, that code is law, right? Where nobody can kind of overrule the code, but in a sense they did. Right? They decided that the theft was not good, and they took it back. That kind of, it's a bad precedent to set. So right now, like if a huge ICO, there's a flaw in the code, and the ICO had like $200-300 million and gets stolen, do we do another hard fork? Or if not, why not, right? And so I didn't like the fact that they did that. And I think I wrote about it, but I think that has led to the recent ICO craze because people put money in the DAO and they got their money back, right? So it's kind of like, and that money actually went up like 20-fold. So you actually now have 20 times that money to play around with because it's like money that you expected to have lost, but you got it back. Now you can just invest in all these ICOs. So So there's so much like dumb money out there being thrown around, and it has caused this huge bubble of ICOs, which is bad. So yeah, so I support Ethereum Classic to a certain degree. I still think Ethereum is going to be. It's almost impossible for Ethereum Classic to overtake Ethereum. But I thought Ethereum was kind of in a bubble recently, so the crash was kind of expected from my point of view. I like Monero, so I like the development team. I like Fluffy Pony, and it's trying to do privacy right. So I like where they're going with that. And after spending, if you like withdraw Monero from exchange, you really feel like that it's private. You can send that kind of transaction to someone else, and they couldn't figure out how much you actually withdrew from the exchange, which is pretty cool. What else do I like? I like Bitcoin and I like Litecoin. That's about it. I mean, I haven't spent too much time on other projects. It's just hard to kind of tell the difference between what's good and what's not good, because there's just so much out there, and I just don't have time to investigate. Right.
Yeah.
And the other thing I think is there's only so many really pressing problems at the moment. So
yeah.
I mean, a lot of these other coins, Bitcoin, Litecoin, Decred, Monero, a lot of them can do a lot of the basic things that everybody wants them to do. Ethereum with its smart contracting systems, and Ethereum Classic, but at the same time, like with Ethereum, I feel like it's like a solution looking for a problem. There's really not a lot of need for these applications to run completely decentralized, because your main reason for starting a coin on or a token on their network is you want to build it so that one day if government comes, cracking down the company's door that built the project itself can still run on its own. So I think there's certain use cases for it, but
yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I think people don't realize that decentralization comes at a cost, right? It's always more efficient to have a centralized product. So, like, people want Bitcoin to compete with Visa, but like it just can't, right? A centralized Visa only has to run one server that handles whatever, like millions of transactions per second, whereas Bitcoin, if you want it to be decentralized and you have like 10,000 plus nodes, each having to do the same work to calculate and make sure the transaction is good and to store it, right? So it's at least 10,000 times more inefficient than Visa. And the same thing with Ethereum. Like if you have a decentralized app, then everything you do with the app needs to be run on however many thousand nodes, right? So what kind of apps really need that kind of decentralization? Most don't, right? I see a future where, let's say Google and Amazon is running a centralized app service, where like financial apps or whatnot, where you can run it and you just have to trust Google and Amazon. And most people trust them for most of the apps you do, right? And if you really need a decentralized app, for example, you can argue that Augur or something like that, you need a decentralized way of doing like online betting, right? So you can't be shut down by the government or places that are illegal. So potentially you need that, and then it's worth paying for that, right? You have to pay a lot more than a centralized version of it, and because people need a decentralized version, they're willing to pay more, and that's fine. It's just like Bitcoin, right? You want decentralized money where governments can't print more, and you can't get censored, and you pay more for that. Mm-hmm. And that's the same thing with Ether, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. So, well, I think we're getting pretty late into this interview. We've got like 40 minutes, or an hour and 40 minutes deep. I don't really have any real big pressing questions. Austin, do you have anything?
No, I answered all of mine. Yeah, it's been really good having you on. Thanks for Thanks for coming on the show.
Sure.
Is there
Okay.
anything you want to say, or before you're done with the interview, or anything you want to tell Litecoin, Decred supporters, Monero people watching, everybody that
I would say that I wish to see less like fighting between the different projects and the different parties. I mean, we're all in this together. We all want this to change the world. So I mean, there's no reason to kind of having so much animosity against each other. So love and peace.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. And I'm so happy that you are a part of the Decred community, because like, I hope that we can bridge a good connection with the Litecoin community. And instead, like, I feel like the vision of Bitcoin was to replace the status quo, the banking, this whole idea of money. And we have so much animosity towards each other's projects that are all trying to accomplish the same type of goals. And I really hope that our community and other communities, like even the Monero community, we had Ricardo on in our last episode. We can all kind of work together and not be so against each other. And even Bitcoin. I think there's a lot to be said about that. Just moving towards the direction of, let's replace this old data technology and this control over money in a way that makes sense for the entire world, instead of fighting with each other constantly. So I remember your Periscope you did about the like hugging somebody, like random person that day. I thought that was really awesome. I think we need to have like a crypto community like hug day where like people have people say a nice thing about like a fellow project and things they appreciate on Twitter. I don't know. I think that'd be
you should see the responses I got on Twitter for that. Some people were saying, "Charlie, did you just discover weed today?"
That's awesome. So well,
I think that a final thought. I think that the future is that a lot of these cryptocurrencies will be connected via like Lightning Network or some other way, where for the average user, you don't really care like what currency you're using. You could hold Bitcoin and send to someone who's expecting Litecoin, and it'll get converted on the fly. Or you can be holding Litecoin and you want to power a decentralized app on the Ethereum network, and you just send Litecoin, and the Lightning Network will convert it to Ether and power that application, right? So it will all be kind of interconnected. It will be very cool. And the UI would be easy, right? You wouldn't have to know what's going on. Similarly, like today, if you're like watching Netflix or something, you don't care if the bits come to you via TCP/IP or some other networking or UDP or something else, right? You just care that it's playing video, right? Someone else behind the scene is making everything work out well for you. And that's the same thing that will happen with cryptocurrency. Right now, we're just in the early stages where there's all these protocols. We don't know how they interact, and we're just figuring it out. And similarly, like right now, if you think of like Ether, like a lot of people compare that to like gas or like gasoline, right? A lot of people hold Ether right now, but it's not really a good store of value or even for payments. And like people don't hold barrels of gasoline oil in their house, right? When your car is out of fuel, you just go to a gas station and just refill your car. I think the same thing would happen if you need Ether in the future. You can just easily swap between Ether and whatever currency you're holding, whether it's Litecoin, Bitcoin, Decred, or anything else, right? And you don't need to hold it if you don't need it.
And I think about, like what does scalability look like with Lightning Network and interoperability between all these chains? Because now you have multiple blockchains to close out transactions. It's like, well, it's like, hey, you know, send it to me in Bitcoin. It's like, well, it'd be cheaper if I send it to you in Decred. Okay, I'll send it to me in Decred, but like with the Lightning Network, you could still send it via Bitcoin, and then you just have this other store of value. Like, to me, that's where scalability is interoperability between blockchains.
Mm-hmm. Like the different coins work together to help the whole network scale, right? To address all the users' needs.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, I want to thank all the people out there. We have like 318 watching right now. This is definitely our most popular episode. I want to thank Charlie Lee for coming on. I want to thank Austin for, you know, being on the episode too. You guys are awesome. Thank you for coming on the show and turning this channel also into a troll box. That's really cool. So yeah, if you guys liked the episode, please like, you know, hit the thumbs up, pound that like button, like Adam Meister says, you know, and tweet it. You know, share with all your friends that this is a really great episode of Decred, and you know, check out Decred. It's a really cool project. We have governance built into the blockchain. We have some awesome developers. To me, that's the most important part. And we have a DAO coming, our own development subsidy that everybody's going to be able to participate in and help fund, you know, via your voting mechanism. So we have a lot of cool stuff coming, and you know, we'll be able to see the project evolve. And you know, we're trying to play nice with most of the other projects like Litecoin and Monero, and you know, we want to kind of bring this the cryptocurrency community together instead of pulling it apart. So thank you again, Charlie, for coming on the show, and
Thank you.
We'll see you guys later. Have a good one.